Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebekah Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebekah Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel that I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill our many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide as much knowledge, practices, and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this.
Hello, encouragers. I've got something exciting. Today on the podcast, I have got my executive assistant, Angie Sattler. Welcome.
Thank you.
I feel like it should be a mic drop in this moment. So I knew that I could get her audio-wise. I don't know that I could convince her to do video ever, but we'll get there. Baby steps, everyone, baby steps. So throughout the past couple of series, I've talked a lot about how an executive assistant will change your life. And I'm not exaggerating. It will change your life. More so your home life, because you know that the detail-oriented parts of your job are being taken care of by somebody who likes that part, who likes the details and the thoroughness of things and systems improvements. So I always just joke that I'm like, well, you just need an Angie. I don't even call it an executive assistant. I call it the Angie. Like, you just need an Angie in your life. So I get to have her on the podcast today. I will not be doing all the talking. We will have Angie telling her a little bit about her position, how it's changed throughout the years for my particular business, Rebekah Scott Designs, and then also how she utilizes it with our podcast here. And just, I'd like to get into also like the personality that you need to attract and the skill set that you need to attract as well to have this position, because it is so important, especially when you go from a team of one. I really feel like the next natural position, other than your accountant, because that's kind of a big deal too, your accountant or your bookkeeper, needs to be an executive assistant so that you can stay in your lane of creating and making, if that's your lane, or services, and then you've got somebody to back you up and cheer you on. So we're talking about how to hire an Angie today. We've also a little bit about our background. It took us 15 minutes to figure out the mic this morning. So we are sharing a microphone lovingly together because the 2 microphone was not going to happen, everybody, but we will figure that out. And then we've got sweet Jovi, who is 3 in the background here playing with the Barbie camper. So Angie, the girl that changed my home life more than my work life. That's my first title here. I want to talk a little bit about the job description, what kind of skills, programs, equipment, all kinds of good questions that you will want to be asking this position. And the first thing when I first hired this position, it wasn't with Angie at first, but what I did, and I've mentioned this several times on the podcast, is write a list of everything you like doing and everything you hate doing or dislike doing. And by the time I got to the end of the list, if it was more like, I don't like being on the sales floor, or I don't like meeting with the customers, that might have been a sales position that I hired. But everything that I wrote down was like ordering supplies, trying to figure out a travel schedule, trying to book hotels, trying to figure out spreadsheets and work orders. It was an office assistant. But the more you look into it, an office assistant doesn't apply either, because there's so much more to the position. And so then it became the executive assistant, because I need my right-hand person. I was going to say man, but that's not fair. I need my right-hand person. So we'll just start off by asking a few questions of Angie, but first tell us where you're from and your family.
I am married to my high school sweetheart, Chris. We are both from Parker. I didn't actually grow up in Parker town, but I grew up in the country right outside of Sioux Falls. So we've been married. Well, we dated for 10 years before we got married. We've been married almost 11. So I've known him more than half my life. And like Becca mentioned, we have a daughter, Jovi. She's 3, almost 4. And we have baby number 2 on the way. Yeah. So we're due in February. So we'll soon be a family of 4.
So exciting. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So first we'll start off with exactly, or not exactly, because believe me, it is always evolving in this business. But what is an idea of what you currently do for Rebekah Scott Designs?
Sure. Some of the main things that I do are helping order supplies. One of my main jobs is updating our website, which is awesome. I help count monthly inventory, sort of just help with breaking down larger projects. So you're more the idea person and say like, I want to do this. And then I maybe would come alongside and say, okay, let's break that down into steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do a lot of document creation. So for us, it's just been, creating an operations manual or tracking documents, or I know the Microsoft programs pretty well, and that's helpful, but Google Documents too are great. Mm-hmm. I kind of try to help execute your vision for the company. We put on here master reminder. That made me laugh, actually.
I put that on there.
Yeah. So it's a lot of being able to track things and then remembering to follow up on those and say, hey, don't forget this is coming, or you talked about this. Let's go back to that and break it down.
Yep.
I help with brainstorming, and I get to be an awesome part of our team.
It makes me think when I call you the master reminder, it's because I like to paint it in a pretty picture. And I'm like, it's because I don't micromanage. Really, it's because I forget to follow up.
Well, it's maybe both. Like
there's that.
You don't micromanage, which is nice.
No, because I also think no, stay in your lane and do your thing. But oh, wait, yeah, we should probably follow up on that. So sometimes I will send her one sentence emails that's like, can you find a way to remind me about this in 3 weeks? And she awesomely does. And so that's good. But you're right. I think in every business, there's 3 things. I think every business has 3 different entities, meaning there is an idea person, there's a builder, and there's a shipper. And every person is 2 of those 3, but not usually 3 of them. Well, I am not a builder. I am large concept idea, and then I want to move straight to shipping it. And then the customer gets it. And Angie goes, wait, let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you ordered the fabric? No. Have you thought through that? Yes. So then she's like, okay, let's go from that. And just the way she delivers things to me is always really positive and kind. And you guys, I had that in the job description when I really was seeking out my full-time executive assistant. It was, okay, I want them to be ridiculously positive. And that's part of the job description. And that's exactly what we attracted. Okay. So I love when you were saying your chore list, I guess is what I called it here, is that some of them, you could tell that you're the website, which is awesome. Clearly, that's your favorite part. And it marries the most beautiful thing because Angie is an ultimate organizer, which you've actually taken courses to possibly pursue organizing. So she has this bone of her awesome body, and then she's very creative. She puts things together, and she likes scrapbooking and crafting weekends with her family and stuff. So the website marries both of those. She gets to work with fun fabrics and fun images, but she gets to organize it in a way that communicates to our customers and straight to the sale. So it was a total win-win. And at one point when we were thinking okay, there's too much on Angie's plate, how do we rearrange things? We thought about removing the website, and she went, wait. And then that was just such a good opener for me to go, oh, okay, no, stay in your lane. If that's what you love, then pushing out some of the other things so that she could stay in the website.
Yeah, it was a moment of clarity for both of us, I think, when we looked at taking that off my plate. I didn't realize how much I did enjoy doing that or why I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it is because of the organizing part of it and then the creative. You're still working with a lot of... And she is very humble and doesn't say it, but she's a wordsmith. So it's fun to see her different combinations. And I almost always squeal when I get to see what she's writing on top of images because it's nailed it. That sounds so cute. So that part is just awesome as well. So if you don't have a website, first of all, you need to listen to my podcast that says why you must have a website. You've got to have a landing spot for your customers to go to when you're not straight in front of them at a show or whatever the circumstances might be. But you also need somebody to organize it. Because if you think that you can do your website on your own, unless it kind of is your lane, there's still part of it that you could still get somebody to upload the images. It's very, very meaty position, and it is a sales position. So what she is putting on the website needs to communicate to our customers how awesome the product is so that I can get the sale from it. Okay, some of the other things you're mentioning, I said I loved that you squealed a little bit when you said the website. Inventory, we might as well have said it like this. Inventory. Because we have to count inventory today, and while we enjoy spending time together, we've discovered we're over it. So we will be hiring the counting part because we're over it. And then the breakdown of large projects. So like we were talking about, I'm a visionary person and a shipper. So she can look at that vision, write it down. She starts her awesome document and she's like, all right, Becca, what are the steps? And I'm like, oh. So she definitely fills in the steps because otherwise I start glazing over and I want to stay in the big picture idea. So that's a very important part of this position is having somebody be a builder. And you'll know that when you are interviewing them or when you're working with them. Let's say you already have this person by the way, the look in their eyes when you come up with a big idea. So when I come up with a big idea, I don't tell my husband because he's like immediately back into the building part where I'm like, wah, wah. He's going to like bring it all the way down. So I call Sarah or my mom. And I'm like, this is what I just thought of. And they're like, awesome, because they're excited about it. Same thing with Angie. She may not be like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. This is her tone. That's a great idea. I'm like, so at first I'm like, wait, does she really mean that? But it's because you're immediately thinking of the breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. And then I hear her squeal over cosmetics when we're counting them or things like that. So I know she likes it, but it's hilarious. I had to get used to like, oh, it's not that she's not excited. She's immediately into, how can I make this happen for her?
I'm already making the list.
How can I make this happen? And truthfully, you do not want two Beccas in this position, or like, we would levitate. Like, you got to have somebody that's building out the position. Okay. Tell us a little bit, and we'll kind of go through this as we're talking about the podcast, some more of these, what's on your chore list. But I think people are wondering, what programs do you recommend that this position have? Meaning systems, like you mentioned Microsoft, like you've got a really good handle on Microsoft and Excel, especially.
Yep. I do a lot of my tracking through either I make my own checklists in Microsoft or in Excel, or like I said, we've been making a lot of Google documents because the team needs to be able to access the information as much as I do. Mm-hmm. The other thing about Google Docs that's nice is that multiple people can update it if you set it up that way, so that there's one place to go for the most current information. Mm-hmm. So, and when we're all working remotely as a part of this team, that is very important for us to all have access from where we are.
Yeah.
So that part is nice. I am a firm believer in some sort of calendar. You've talked at length about what your calendar system is. Mm-hmm. I still carry a paper planner. I've tried doing it on my phone. It just does not work for me. So I write everything down in my planner. So I think a calendar or some way to manage your tasks and dates and appointments is important. Like a list app or a notes app, I think is important too for those times when maybe you don't have your laptop and you don't have a notebook or a pen. I love sticky notes, but I do generally either will email myself or use a note app on my phone. And then we've talked at length about this too, our agenda sheet.
Oh!
I wrote down it's from episode 142, so I think it's just 2 back from this one. I kind of live and die by that agenda sheet for work, especially.
And Angie created this. This is her baby. We should be charging money for this. I saw her bring it out to the studio. I was like, wait, what is this? And it was probably a couple years ago. She's like, well, I just decided that when I started this position that, and you've probably run it all your life. I guess I thought it was just when you started with me.
It's been since I've started with you.
It's amazing. And so it's just, you guys listen to the podcast. You'll come up with it. It's Angie's baby. It's amazing. It'll change your life.
Well, and on that episode, we do give you a link to download the Word document. So it's basically just a bare bones document that you can type in your own list and print it off each week. So it just, especially with the repeatable tasks and the ones that pop up where it's like, ooh, I have to run to the store to grab this. It's just a great way to keep track of all that.
Unless, and I think where you're going with it is less sticky notes because it's on the agenda sheet. And so especially in our roles, to have one place where it's all at is just amazing. And you also mentioned laptop. I think this position must have a laptop because you're going to be traveling with a visionary. So you're going to have to be able to write things down quickly.
Yep. I use my laptop a lot.
Okay. So Microsoft, a laptop, knowledge in breaking down big concepts is just kind of something that's probably natural for you when you were born. Like you just look at things and know how to build things out. But you're looking for, if you are the boss or the leader, as I like to call them, you're looking for a builder, someone who, if you mention a big idea, they immediately go, okay, what are the steps to get her there? That would be very important. What else? Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Well, you mentioned programs, and that kind of goes into equipment too. So like for equipment, I use my cell phone, my laptop, my planner, and I'm kind of old school. I do like notebook and pen or like our agenda sheet that I print off each week. I like to have a tangible thing, and like at the end of the day, I pack that stuff up and I put it away. And then I feel like that's what gives me permission to move to family time. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, because you have your portfolio too.
Yep.
Sometimes I cross things off in it without, well, I tell you, but I'm like, can I cross that one off?
It's very satisfying to check the little box.
Yes, and I highly recommend the strike-through noise on digital devices.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know about until I met Angie. I'm like, wait, did that just make a strike-through noise? And she was like, yes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, so now some more personal questions is, what boundaries have you set up to guard against burnout? Because in this position, as much as Angie loves it, it can be all consuming if you want it to be, because she works from home. So you could be like, okay, well, I'm not going to work because today was a bad day with Jovi, so I'm just going to work until midnight, which I'm sure you did at times. And then we were like, wait a minute, we gotta create some boundaries around this. So how would you help direct leaders to create those boundaries for this position, or how did you personally do it?
Well, I think what it really starts with the leader. Like, you as the leader have been very clear about what your priorities and boundaries are. And I feel like that gave me specifically and other people on the team permission to do the same.
Okay.
So I think it kind of comes from the top down. For me personally, some boundaries that I've set up are just, I have alarms set on my phone to signify like when it's time for a lunch break. Not because I've ever forgotten a meal, just because I do enjoy the work so much. It can be like, oh my gosh, it's 2:00 and I forgot to feed Jovi and I lunch. So I do have that set up. And then at the end of the day at 4:00, I have an alarm also that reminds me, like, okay, put work away, get the house picked up, start dinner, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I love hearing the alarms go off, because it also is like, that's really smart. It's the same thing with me with game time. Like, okay, game time, which I got terrible about this summer, but I'm going to get back into it now that it's just Pixon and I. It's just a marker of like, wait, this is also I get to pick home life in the middle of my day.
Yep.
So that's super important. What other boundaries have you set up to guard against burnout?
I've turned off email alerts on my phone email app for work.
Yeah.
And I've put that app on the third page of my phone so that I'm not tempted to check it constantly. So those little red circle alerts on, like, so I have an iPhone, you know, it says like, you have 12 emails.
Oh, I took that.
I'm like,
I don't even know how to set that up.
About, I have to, like, what 12 emails do I have? Like, let me check them quick. So I knew that turning off those alerts was a big thing for me to set that boundary so that I'm not tempted to check email all the time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Honestly, I didn't even know that was an option so I talk about, I have no notifications on my phone. I do have Instagram, and I don't know why, but I don't check that because I have Nikki on the team doing that. But yes, everybody, I'm giving you permission as a leader. You got to shut off email notifications. That is so consuming, especially for, I would think, an idea person, because it's like, well, it's something else that I can build on the idea or click off or to do. Yeah, no. Take the notifications off.
Yep. So that was a big one for me. And then this idea came from you having a small or a limited checklist so you're not tempted to put 50 things on there in one day, because that's just not realistic to get that done.
No. That's where burnout comes from, when we're like, I'm going to write 50 things down. If I don't, I'll just keep moving it. Whoa, let's get real here. Yeah.
Those are the main ones. I do have one boundary set too, that I won't bring my laptop into bed with me.
Oh, smart.
Sometimes if, like you said, if it was a rough day with Jovi or she just needed more of my attention, or if I'm trying to get a bigger project done, I will tell Chris, like, hey, is it okay if I do some work? And as long as we're sitting next to each other and we have like maybe the TV on in the background, that's okay. But otherwise I try not to bring my laptop to bed.
That's such a good rule. Yeah. It's Nick and I don't have cell phones on the couch at night. Like, it's just, we just can't do that. And I'm going to try and prevent that altogether. I do not want you to lay in bed with 2 kids and your laptop.
Well, I mean, like you said, though, it's just nice to have the flexibility to pause work during the day and then pick it up again when the kids are in bed. I mean, that's a nice perk to be able to do that. Yeah. And also, I don't charge my phone in my bedroom. So that's another one.
Me neither. Old school alarm clock that needs to be replaced because there's something wonky about it. But yeah. I don't understand the phone in bed. I think that would be such a turnoff if I saw my husband on his phone in the morning. I'd be like, what? What? Like, let's do life right now. You're already plugging into media, which I don't even know that's what he's doing. It used to be weather because we farm, so he's always obsessed with the weather. But I'm like, yeah, no more phone in here. You got to get out of bed to go check your phone.
Yeah, I read something once that it was some quote that said, you should share whispers with God before you share shouts with the world. And
wow.
For me, that was a big one where it's like, I may have my alarm on my phone, but once I turn that off, I don't even unplug the phone until I've had like some quiet time in the morning.
So smart. And that's a great boundary. What is your favorite part of the job?
That's a hard question. Honestly, it's just feeling like I'm getting use out of the talents that God gave me and recognizing those as talents. I think sometimes that's hard. Like when you're in a support position, maybe you feel not less important, but just that like, oh, well, I just have these basic skills. But recognizing that those skills are something that are very important. Yeah. And just getting the feeling that I get to use those, I think, is probably my favorite part of the job because I really do like what I do. I mean, I love what I do. I like that I'm adding value to an organization, especially one I believe in. I used to stalk Becca like before I worked. So I worked with her for 3 years. It'll be 4 years in January, or I'll start my 4th year in January. And I used to stalk her at art shows. And I mean, I bought my first Rebekah Scott purse probably 13 years ago, 10 years ago at least.
Here's the creepy part. I know what it was.
Of course you do. Your memory is
I have a weird,
crazy.
creepy memory.
But that's a good thing. Like, we joke about it, but yes, it's a little freaky at times. So yeah, I used to stalk her at art shows, but I do genuinely love her product, and I've loved it long before I started working for her. So that also makes the job really fun and rewarding. I love being helpful, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. I'm an Enneagram type 2, and that is labeled as the helper.
Yes.
I just like contributing to and being a part of a successful team. When Becca and Nicole and I get to be in the studio, we just have such a blast together. It's so much fun. And sometimes the time goes by way too fast, and sometimes, all the time, because we just laugh. And
we're the only 3 people that think like this afternoon, taking 300 items is a good time.
Yeah.
Like QR codes, we have music, we talk about every possible scenario of life and work and business. Yeah. Actually, it's hardly ever business. It's more like just general conversation. It's amazing.
It's really fun. So that's very rewarding. I really liked project completion. So seeing projects through from start to finish, for me, that means a lot of check marks, which are very satisfying and I love. And the last thing I said was just flexibility to work around my family and their needs or my needs. And I probably should have said that one first, because you allow us and encourage us to put our families before work. And that means a lot to us. So,
yeah. Oh, no. Like I always said that if I want to be able to have other moms be able to raise their kids and do what they love at home, whether it's office work or sewing, I want them to be able to establish the same boundaries and the same awesome things that I get to do. So that means sometimes we move at a slower, as soon as I said slower pace, I'm like, Angie is like, what? Excuse me, what? We never run at a slower pace. But
I do. You don't. We have this analogy of like sprint shoes. And like when Becca comes up with an idea, it's like, okay, she's already 6 laps ahead of me. I'm not a runner anyway. So like,
I just thought of something. I'll just get you a chariot. I'll be the horse.
Yes.
And then you can just like
perfect.
And you get complete with a whip to be like, not that I will ever need a boost of energy. You just need to hold on. So that's exactly like the people that I hire don't necessarily have to be work from home moms, because I have grandmas, I have aunts, I have single women, I have every scenario, but mostly what I wanted to offer them was the freedom that I get to experience. And so how can that trickle down into this position is just really important to me. You have a lot of favorite parts, which, guys, by the way, as a leader, I'm like, oh, shrew, she still likes the job. Because I want to continue to offer that. So I'm always asking, like, how's it going? Like, where should we move things around? And they do the same thing for me and give me permission. Is like, Becca, this seems like it stresses you out. Or like the work order thing, especially, I was filling out like, okay, so the work order, let's explain that, because I think that would be good if you have a position like mine.
Yeah.
So we have orders come in on the website. What do you do with them? Well, if you're small batch, you work with them one at a time. Then you become like, you get 10 orders a week and you're like, okay, well, now I'll come up with a system. So I'll cut them out, or I'll make them on Monday, and on Tuesday, develop them Wednesday, whatever, and then I'll ship them on Friday, but I got them on Monday. Well, that's doable. And then you get to like 20 to 30 and you're like, oh, okay, I'll do the same system in the middle of it where it was Monday and ship on Friday, but now I got to type it all up. So the position just started developing like that for me when I was cutting. Well, I realized, I don't know, the gal that was helping me cut, when I finally hired that part out, she said, well, let's just put it on a spreadsheet. And I was like, okay. So she set up the spreadsheet. This is outside before I even had Angie. Or maybe I did have Angie, but she just didn't see this part of the business yet. Anyways, and then I would type up the work order into the different fields on the Excel sheet. Well, I was literally writing Peggy, cyan bloom, melon, black leather, 1 purse bottom and 1 long strap for every line. Well, Angie watched me do it one time. She's like, whoa, wait, what are you doing? And that is not her words at all. This is my brain when I was like, I don't know. This is just how I do it. And she automated it. So when I would write PE for Peggy, it would auto-populate the word Peggy and then fill in the leather parts. I could not believe it. And she had it to me within like 4 days. And she's like, wait, what are you doing? Well, it was starting to take up 2 hours of my day. And I was like, well, it's okay. I just have to write the work order out. And they're like, wait. So to me, that was like one of the biggest gifts from heaven was this document. And now you guys, we're at the stage past that where I don't even write the work order because it's so much that my shipping gal, we have to work on what her title officially is. She's customer service help. She now types it up and it auto-populates for her. So it's just amazing how the position develops, which is, again, what an executive assistant would do. Look at the leader's processes, look at her every day and go, how can I make this better for her, more efficient for her, and more all the things. So that was like a huge like moment. And kudos to this position as well. When you get this builder on board and they are in their lane and they're developing ideas, you can do what you do 100% better and faster. That's why I've created so much in the last 2 years, because I'm like standing at the cutting table. I'm like, well, I don't have to do a work order and I don't even have that much email because they take care of a lot of that stuff. And I'm not answering the phone anymore and I'm not ordering fabric. I'm going to create today. And so I can just create at incredible speeds, which is my lane, what I have to do to keep the business going. Okay, it's so easy on this podcast just to go off on tangents because I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this position so much. I want to tell them why they need it. So my next question is, what drives you to keep doing the work, because it is involved and never ending, which praise God it's not, and then continue to evolve in it, like realize different systems that need improvements?
When you tell your story, you talk about how you sat at your mom's sewing table and begged for scraps, or that you had created Barbie clothes for your Barbies out of like Kleenex and stapler and whatever you had. I have been playing Office since as far back as I can remember. My parents even have like this old keyboard that they saved, and on it I stuck a label and wrote speakerphone. I still have it.
You wrote speakerphone?
Yeah. Way back in the day.
We should shadow box that.
Right? Except it's huge. But I also love process improvement. So just making things better, more efficient, easier. I love helping others, but as you know, I prefer to do so in the background.
Yes.
Like I even get nervous filming you on Facebook Lives and I'm behind the camera. So I don't know. I love that you love doing that.
Yes.
And you get to stay in your lane and I'll stay in the background. Yeah. I love the feeling of just being appreciated. So one of my love languages is words of affirmation. So when you get just as excited about a nerdy spreadsheet document that I've created.
Oh yeah.
Or like you praise me for doing something, like that means a lot to me, just feeling appreciated. Yeah. How you encourage us like to stay in our lane, which I just think makes us a strong team. Mm-hmm. So there's no micromanagement. We all have our own strengths, and it means that if something comes along, like say I get an email and it needs to go to Nicole because it's a customer service thing, I can confidently pass that to her and know that she will take it to the finish line and do a great job. I love checking boxes and completing tasks. I love, an empty inbox that rarely happens. But like you said, thank you, Lord, that we're blessed with awesome customers and
sometimes needy ones.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. We get some,
we call them 2219s. From the movie Monsters. Okay, moms, remember the movie Monsters when the door opens?
Yeah.
Monsters Inc. and they're like, 2219! That's on the back end what we call our high maintenance customers. Total inside secret there, but we'll be like, listen up, this is a 2219, which means high attention to detail,
Yes, like,
make sure we get it right. So
yes.
it's not like we are rolling our eyes behind their back. It's like we have to prioritize this customer because they have high needs. So we call them a 2219.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because like I said, you guys pick 2 values for a company. Ours is customer service and quality. So everything we do revolves around those 2 things.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
So the need, like as an Enneagram 2, again, I need to be needed. And so just being needed is a good thing.
Check mark.
Check. And I just love working from home with my daughter. So I'm super motivated to continue to grow in my position and to grow the business because I really can't imagine going back to an 8 to 5. This is just way too fun.
Everybody that works for me because then they will never go back. That's my secret plan all along is like, I'm going to show you freedom and you'll never go back to wearing black dress pants again. Ever. One of the funny things that Angie said to me when she quit her corporate job was like, I haven't wore a waistband in months. That's like,
and you're talking about freedom, ladies.
A waistband. What a funny statement. I'm like, well, I'm glad I could offer that to you. That was so funny. Okay, so when you hear other business owners say they need help, because no joke, my husband was talking about, Angie was just making conversation with him. He was like, hey, Nick, how's it going? He's like, ugh. And he was doing invoicing for his construction business. And he's like, I need a secretary. And Angie told me later, she's like, I literally had to swallow because I was like, I can help you.
I could do that.
Because of her need to help people. And so why do you think that is? What is that the Enneagram in you? Is that...
I think some, yeah. The last podcast you recorded, it was called Know Thyself. And you talk about some of these tests and quizzes and things that you can do for personal development where you just learn how you're woven together, like why you make decisions the way that you do or why you have the impulses or compulsions that you do. And I definitely do think that because I'm a helper and I enjoy those administrative type tasks, it is very hard for me when other people in my life will be like, oh, I just really need some help with this. Like, well, I can do that. Or, and it's not because I'm a confident, like I would say I actually lack self-confidence. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten to know that like, no, this is a skill that not everyone has. And it's one that people need. And I like doing it. So it's pretty hard for me to not jump when someone says that they need help with something.
Because you are now more confident in what you can do for people.
Yeah. And just figuring out that like I enjoy problem solving or making things better or process improvement. It's, you talk about the like joy and compulsion and skill and how when those converge, it's kind of like your super skill. And so I think problem solving and process improvement is definitely one of mine.
It's definitely on our super skill. And what I would say, ideally, you guys, what you're looking for is you're looking for a 2 with a 1 wing in this position. Like seriously, if we just like, if you write your job description, it should say, I need you to be a 2 on the Enneagram with the 1 wing because 1 is perfectionism. And so you can, and my concern with this is you can hire good helpers. People are like, oh, I can help, but they maybe aren't thorough. So the thorough part is the 1 of you, which you're like, no, I'm going to finish this. Like this is our goal. And so we talk about the word circling back a lot in the business. That is because Angie's need to finish it. The perfectionism, finish this completion is really important in this role. So when you go to hire it, not just a helper who enjoys completion, like finishing it.
Yep.
It's very important. How can we find more helpers and what are the signs that we look for?
So I think that you need to look for problem solvers or people who offer ideas for solving problems, even if it's just in conversation. So like if maybe you have a friend that you're just making conversation with and they can't help you directly, they're like, ooh, I have a friend who does XYZ. Let me text you their number. It's that kind of person who wants to help you solve the problem instead of just being like, oh, that's too bad, or, oh, yay, good for you, or, whatever. They're offering solutions for the problem.
So what you could tell yourself is if you could set this up, you could mock and say, so I listened to this podcast where he interviewed people for basically an executive assistant. And what he said at the beginning of the interview, kind of offhand when they were sitting there waiting, he's like, gosh, I need to find a pineapple that's 6 inches tall. It's for this Pinterest thing that my daughter is doing, and I can't find a 6-inch tall pineapple. And the ones that he narrowed it down to the second interview were the ones that are like, oh, offered a tip, like Walmart always has like really good pineapples, or I know this really great grower or whatever. Like they offered one step further than just saying it. Like they recognized a need that they didn't, I guess the guy, obviously planted it, but they foresee problems and they foresee needs before the leader even knows it.
Right.
And the one that got the job brought him a 6-inch pineapple. Like,
gosh.
And I'm like, that is exactly the position. Like you can say something like, wait, hold on. And now that I say that out loud, I hear you saying that, like, wait, hold on, back up. You say that to me a lot, back up. Because you were problem solving what it was. And I was already past, I'm like, I don't know, it's just going to be the way it is. Like, I tend to do things the hard way because I shouldn't say tend to, but I may do it the hard way because I'm just a hard worker anyway. So I'm like, I don't know, this is just what I decided to do, so I'm going to do it. And that's where you need somebody who goes, awesome, I'm glad you're motivated, but actually I think this could be more simple. So they also need to be like a simplifier and recognize needs.
Yes.
How can we now, as leaders, help this position as much as possible? Like, what do we need to be? We've talked about it a little bit throughout the podcast, but what do we need to be able to offer the position to make sure you guys are built up?
Other than what we've mentioned already, I think for me, communication is just huge. Like I'm successful in my job because you clearly communicate what your needs are to me. If they aren't clear, I can ask for clarity and you'll say, oh, okay, this is what I meant by that. Yeah. So for me personally, it's clear communication.
Which happens on our Monday phone call at 9.
Yes.
Like to make it a point to communicate with this position. You can't just leave them in their own lane. And part of this is personality types, but Angie needs to know like what's happening this week so she knows how to prioritize her tasks. So we call each other at 9 a.m. And I think I recorded a podcast on that, or it's coming out. Our 9 a.m. chat.
Oh, I think it's coming. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead and keep going.
Oh, that's okay. Feedback. So positive, and I put constructive. And by that, I'm implying that obviously not everything that I do is always perfect and spot on. And so
mostly it is.
Well, but when it's not, it's nice to be corrected and say like,
sure,
let's do this next time, or, and you're always positive about how you do that. Showing appreciation. You ask our love language.
Yeah.
And then you make sure you speak that to us. And that's important. Setting clear goals and expectations is always great to get from your leader so you know what direction you're heading in. Yeah. It's kind of hard to hit a mark when you don't know what you're aiming for.
Right.
You are really good about following up on priorities and tasks and helping me set priorities. So I said earlier, I tend to maybe bite off a little more than I can chew sometimes. And during our Monday phone calls, when you say like, what are your priorities for this week? If I list them off, you're like, that sounds like a lot. Let's push these other 2 to next week. And so you give me permission to do that, which is great.
Yeah.
For us, celebrating victories or completed projects, even if it's brief, like literally could be like a woohoo. And like we have a glass of iced tea and toast.
That sounded a little anticlimactic, but we are pregnant and we do live in the farm and I never have drinks. So I'm always like, gosh, should we celebrate somehow? So we're like, high five, that felt good. Later.
But taking time. Yeah.
The other thing that you need to get from your helper is Angie will pick up on days for me. Like you guys obviously know from listening from me for years, like positive to a fault. But she will pick up like, oh, I'm going to bring Becca a chai tea. So it's really nice to have this position know that I can't always be spot on. And it's not possible for the leader to always be on. Now the 3, because I'm an Enneagram 3, it's the performer. I may appear that way, but Angie, learning more about me over the years, has known like, okay, you know what? I heard it in her voice. I'm going to bring her chai tea. And then she offers me words of encouragement, like brilliant. In fact, I called my twin sister for one of these and she started crying because she was so happy Angie was in my life. So it's really important too that you know each other, like know yourself and know the people that work for you, know what their Enneagram type is, know what their top 5 strengths are so that you can feed into it. You'll have way less turnover when you can understand them better. And our job is to develop them and to be leaders in their positions, because ultimately, you guys, it goes down to the sales. The work that they do on their spreadsheets and on their email and how they're taking care of your customers goes down to your bottom line. Take care of them. I do want to say, too, as far as celebrating, we break every quarter now to go to different breweries around the area and celebrate as a team. So I realized, I've recorded podcasts on why it's important to pause and celebrate achievements, because you're telling your subconscious you have arrived. Otherwise, if you just like ignore it, your subconscious feels like you're never arriving and you're just going to get burnt out eventually. So you do need to pause and celebrate. And so we do that as a team together, whether it's a high five or the breaking every quarter to be like, hey, we nailed it. That sort of thing.
Like another thing a leader can do for their team is to get to know them personally, like both their strengths and their weaknesses. So if you've identified a strength, helping encourage that, strengthen that, develop that, but also the weaknesses are just as important. And I don't necessarily mean weaknesses as in like, not traditionally how you think of them. So you had us take the Clifton Strengths Finder test, which you talk about in the Know Thyself podcast, which is the one right before this. And one of my top 5 strengths is empathy, which is a great strength.
Oh, yeah.
To have.
Bible strength, basically.
But Becca identified that because I was handling customer service emails, and I would come to the studio sometimes and be like, oh, this gal and her mom is sick. And Becca would be like, how did you even get on this topic? Or like, what, how, what?
Like, I'm not laughing at the hospital situation, but you guys, she would have to step out of the studio. And we're like, why are you stepping out? Like, we understand if it's a private call. And she's like, well, she's in the hospital room with her daughter on her deathbed. And I'm like, wait, what? And why do you have this phone call? Like, and because of her amount of empathy, needed to be in that moment and needed to be there for this woman. So I don't doubt any of those. But as the leader, I was like, whoa, this is too draining on Angie to continue to do great work. Like, I didn't want to waste her God-given gift of empathy on purses, to be honest. So I was like, we have to move this around, because that is a gift you need to reserve for awesome moments in your life, not on customer service about a broken handle. Like, we cannot do this, because inevitably it would turn into a conversation about what's going on in her personal life, not the broken handle. So that was a big aha for me too. And it was after prayers and watching empathy so thick in your life that I was like, this is the polar opposite of what we need. You do not need to be in customer service. We need to put you more in things that build you instead of drain you.
And you handled it in such a great way that, like, as an Enneagram 2, I can be possessive. Like, that's one of the maybe not so great traits of an Enneagram 2. And so sometimes, and it's also hard for me to acknowledge my own needs. Because I'm constantly meeting the needs of other people. So that's another trait that is just dead on. Like, when I read that, I thought, oh yeah, okay. So you handled it so beautifully though, because you said, like, your empathy is a great strength, but it's draining you. And we need to take that off your plate so that you can kind of soar in these other areas. So as a leader, that was huge for, like, I didn't even know that I was feeling that way. Or that it was affecting me that way, but you recognize that as the leader, by taking a step back and just knowing your team. So,
and I think that would be discernment as well. Like, just asking God to keep revealing to you where you can have improvement, and watching someone just like not be chipper and on their game. I was like, wait a minute, we gotta change things around here. So it was an awesome and pretty smooth transition. And now when we mention stuff, Angie's like, good Lord, I'm glad I'm not dealing with a broken handle, and we still do. And here's the beauty of it. When the position changed, so she was not answering customer email, she still answers our prayer request emails. So we post something that says, if you have a prayer request, please post it here. Then I keep a list that is still private to me, and I write it down, and then I pray for them while I'm sewing. Angie prays for them too. And so she will respond back to the customer request with beautiful scripture. It could not have lined up better for you to still have a ministry through these purses where you individually pray for these alongside me. Like, it was obviously not us. It was a higher power above us.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to use both of you. I think briefly we should go over, that chat that we have on Monday.
Yeah.
It's 3 talking points. Go over your calendar. And Angie and I go over both business and personal, probably because we're friends anyways, but also it just helps me guard hers and she can guard mine. She'll be like, Becca, you double booked because I know you said you had this for your kids. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I forgot. So she's really good about that. And then I can also gauge wait, what? Your father-in-law is going through what? No, push everything to next week. So we just help guard each other. Mm-hmm. So that's what we talk about in our calendar. We talk about priorities. Angie talked about how we do that. And then we Oh, and then we talk about follow-ups, mostly because sometimes I forget about things and we don't micromanage, but both of us can go, wait, how's that going? And then I could tell her, oh yeah, I did call that gal and we're going to train on this. So it just kind of keeps us all in the loop together.
My favorite part about our Monday call is that because I tend to have too much on my list, you can help me prioritize those things. And also because we work remotely, which is so fun, these regular touch points really do just help us stay on the same page where we're at.
It's a very delicate balance because I have so many contractors working in their home to still maintain a team. And we've managed to do it through different things. And I'm thinking about recording a podcast on it because I've managed to build a team that we still have a lot of camaraderie together, but it is in our own homes. And so these touch points calls on Monday are really important. And then we also talk about the days that Angie will come out to the studio so that we can both make sure like we're prioritizing that, or she's really flexible about like, I can come out on Wednesday if you need me to. And then she will sometimes ask me again, like, are you sure? And then that really makes me pause and go, okay, she needs to know. And I need to define, yes, actually, I do need you to come out. Because I will try not to make it happen, but then I appreciate that she asks it twice. Usually it's like, okay, are you sure? Yeah. Or, nope, I'm lying. I totally need you to come out. So we call the position an executive assistant, and it's a beautiful way of saying a hyper-intensive helper that will change your work life and also your family life. You know that I preach about it all the time. I said, basically, you're hiring an Angie. And my vendor friends in the art world always joke about like, well, not everybody has an Angie, Becca. And I'm like, no, you don't, but you need to get one. So I thought we have to record this podcast because we talk about it frequently in our course development as well. Make sure you sign up on the mastermind course. Our next one starts in January, which is a perfect time when we're all on fire for new goals to start the course with us. And Angie is on the course, and she, of course, is taking notes in the background so that we can get homework accomplished and that I could stay in the lane of encouraging you. With all that being said, go write out your list. What do you like doing and what do you dislike doing? That is where you're going to start your job description for your executive assistant, i.e., Angie. And when you attract her in your life, you will give me a big hug and thank me. And then you'll give Angie a big hug and thank her for being the leader on what an executive assistant should be like. So we get to say it together today. Until next time, encouragers, we got this.
Hey, encouragers! If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you've had the scene where you're crying because there's no way you can meet all the roles in your life, I've been there. I've so been there, but I'm not there anymore. And I know how you can get out of that slump and start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at equippedtoexecute.com, also on my website at shoprsd.com, and it's also available on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone, and please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.